Hey guys, tonight we're taking a journey into the gaslit, fog-shrouded world of Victorian England. It was an age of immense progress, of science, industry, and empire, but it was also an age of deep and profound anxieties. And tonight, we are going to explore one of its most specific, most primal, and most miserable fears: the terrifying possibility of being buried alive. We are about to become an undertaker, a man whose business is death, and we will witness firsthand the strange and ingenious lengths people would go to in order to ensure that their final rest was truly and permanently final. Now for our little reality check. The 19th century was a strange time for medicine. Science was advancing rapidly, but the ability to accurately diagnose death was still surprisingly flawed. Comas, catalepsy, and fainting spells could all mimic the appearance of death. This meant that medical science was just good enough to sometimes mistakenly declare you dead, but not quite good enough to get you out of the coffin if you happened to wake up during your own funeral. This, as you can imagine, created a certain level of consumer anxiety. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is the safety bell that pulls this channel back from the grave. And as always, I love to see our community from all corners of the globe. So please post your city and your local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story begins in London. In the year 1875, the city is a great, monstrous, breathing beast, the heart of a global empire. It is a city of unimaginable wealth and crushing poverty, of grand new railway stations and ancient, teeming slums. The air is a thick, yellow-gray soup of coal smoke, river fog, and the smell of 500,000 horses. The constant soundtrack is the rumble of iron-shod wheels on cobblestones and the distant, mournful horns of ships on the Thames. You are a young man of 19, and your prospects are bleak. After the sudden death of your father, a clerk with no savings, you are left with a choice: the workhouse, or the generosity of your only living relative, your mother's brother, Abel Croft. You choose your uncle, and in doing so, you choose your new trade. Your uncle is a furnishing undertaker. His establishment is on a respectable, if gloomy, street. A discreet, black-painted sign reads, "Abel Croft and Nephew, Funerary Services." Your uncle is a man who reflects his trade. He is tall, thin, and always dressed in sober black. He is not a ghoulish man. He is a pragmatic and successful small businessman. His commodity is a dignified and orderly death. He is a producer of funerals. Your uncle is an undertaker. He is in the business of sorrow. And in Victorian London, with its cholera, smog, and runaway horses, business is booming. You become his apprentice. Your new home is a small, dark room above the shop. Your new life is a quiet immersion in the rituals and the commerce of death. Master Croft, as you now call him, begins your education immediately. You learn the tools of the trade, the measuring tape, to take the precise dimensions of a client for their coffin, the ledger book, to record the dizzying array of costs and services, and the tools of the workshop in the back, where you learn the craft of coffin making. You learn the different woods and their social significance: plain pine for a parish burial, solid English oak for a respectable merchant, and polished, expensive mahogany with brass fittings for the gentry. Your first duty is the house call, when the bell on the shop door jingles. You and your uncle go out. You walk through the foggy streets to a house of mourning, while your uncle speaks in low, comforting tones to the grieving family. Your job is to go to the death chamber. You must enter the silent room where the body lies, and with a cool, professional detachment, take the measurements length and width at the shoulders. It is a grim and awkward task, but you learn to perform it with a quiet efficiency. Back at the shop, You learn the art of preparing the body. This is the part of the trade that requires the strongest stomach. You learn to wash the corpse, to close the eyes and set the jaw with a strip of linen tied around the head. You learn about the cooling board, a simple plank on which the body is laid out, often with blocks of ice beneath it, to slow the inevitable advance of decomposition before the wake and funeral. You also learn that undertaking is a business, and a very class-conscious one. Your uncle has a list of funeral packages, from the most basic third-class service, a simple pine coffin, a hand-drawn cart, a basic shroud, to the spectacular first-class affair. A first-class funeral includes a magnificent coffin of French-polished mahogany, a hearse drawn by 4 black horses with ostrich plume headdresses, and the hiring of professional mourners, known as mutes. These mutes are one of the strangest aspects of your new profession. They're tall, thin, miserable-looking men whom your uncle hires for the day. They are dressed in black suits with long, crepe sashes, and they are given long, black staffs, also draped in crepe. Their only job is to stand at the front door of the house of mourning for hours on end, looking as sad as humanly possible. Their presence is a symbol of the family's status, a sign to all the neighbors that this is a household that can afford the very best kind of grief. You spend a year learning this trade. You become accustomed to the constant, low-level presence of death. It becomes a routine. The causes of death are familiar and varied the consumption that wastes a person away. The sudden apoplexy that strikes down a wealthy old man. The cholera that sweeps through a poor neighborhood. The tragic accident at a factory or on the railway. The dead are a constant, steady stream of clients, and they are all, without question, undeniably dead. The finality of their condition is the bedrock upon which your entire profession is built. During this time, you hear no talk of curses or of strange fears. You hear only of grief, of inheritance, and of the desperate need to maintain social appearances, even in the face of death. Future historians will debate the nature of these elaborate mourning rituals. Were they a genuine outlet for sorrow, or a rigid and oppressive social performance? You see both. You see the real, heartbreaking grief of a widow choosing a coffin for her husband, and you see her anxiety as she discusses the cost, her fear of what the neighbors will think if she does not provide a sufficiently grand procession. One cold, foggy evening in November, a message arrives. It is a summons from a fine house in a wealthy square in Kensington. A young woman, the daughter of a baronet, has died suddenly. The family requests your services immediately. It seems like just another sad, but routine case, another house of quiet, respectable grief, another set of measurements to be taken, another fine oak coffin to be built. You and your uncle gather your tools, the measuring tape, the ledger, the long black bag containing the implements for preparing the body. You climb into your own somber black carriage and head out into the foggy London night. You are a competent, professional undertaker's apprentice now. You are no longer squeamish. You understand the procedures. You have learned the rules of a normal death. You have no idea that you are on your way to a house where all those rules are about to be broken. You believe you are going to prepare a body for burial. You do not yet know that you are about to come face to face with the miserable, terrifying fear that will come to dominate your life and your trade for years to come. You and your uncle, Mr. Croft, arrive at the grand Kensington house. The gaslights on the street hiss softly, their light haloed in the thick, yellow-gray fog. A solemn butler, his eyes red-rimmed, shows you into a hall that is hushed and heavy with a profound, respectable grief. The girl's father, a baronet named Sir Alistair, greets you. He is a man accustomed to command, but tonight he is stooped and broken. "Thank you for coming so promptly," he says, his voice thick. "It is my daughter, Eleanor. She was in perfect health. We were preparing for dinner. She complained of a sudden weakness, and then she simply fainted. The doctor was called, He could find no pulse, no breath. He has pronounced her gone from us. He leads you up the grand, carpeted staircase to the young woman's bedchamber. The room is a picture of youthful, feminine grace, with floral wallpaper and books of poetry on the nightstand. But it is cold, the fire in the hearth having been allowed to die out. And on the great canopied bed lies the still form of the girl. Eleanor. She is beautiful, her pale skin like porcelain in the lamplight, her long, dark hair spread out on the pillow. She looks for all the world as if she is in a deep and peaceful sleep. There is no sign of sickness, no mark of injury. Your uncle speaks in low, comforting tones with the father in the hallway, discussing the arrangements for the fine oak coffin and the funeral service. Your job is to begin the preparations for the body. You enter the room alone, carrying the tools of your trade, and close the door behind you. It's a sad case. A young woman gone before her time. But for you, it's another day at the office. A very quiet, very still day at the office. Or so you think. You approach the bed. You are a professional now. You have done this a dozen times. You perform the task with a practiced, respectful detachment. You take out your measuring tape and carefully measure the girl's length and the width of her shoulders. You make a neat note of the dimensions in your ledger. You then begin the task of preparing her for the cooling board. You take a clean, damp cloth and gently wash her face. Her skin, you note, is strangely supple, not yet showing the waxy rigidity you have come to expect. You dismiss it. The room is cold. The process is perhaps slower in some. You take a silk ribbon from your bag and gently pass it under her chin to tie her jaw shut. A task that is always a little grim. Then, you attempt to close her eyes. You press the lids down gently with your fingertips, but they drift open again, just a fraction, revealing a sliver of the blue iris beneath. This is common. You try again, and as you do, you see it. A tiny, almost imperceptible flutter of her eyelashes. You freeze, your hands hovering over her face. You tell yourself it was a trick of the lamplight. A shadow? You tell yourself it was a post-mortem reflex. A simple twitch of a nerve. You wait, your own heart pounding in the silent room. Nothing. You let out a slow breath. It was nothing. You and Mr. Croft bring the heavy cooling board into the room and place it beside the bed. Together, you reach down to lift the girl's body. She is light, a fragile weight in your arms as you lift her. Her head lolls to the side, and you hear a soft, distinct sigh of air escape her lips. Air from the lungs, Mr. Croft murmurs, his voice a little strained. It happens sometimes when the body is moved. You both place her gently on the flat, hard surface of the cooling board. You are arranging her limbs, straightening her simple white gown, when her chest gives a grate. Sudden shudder. Her head lifts from the board, and her eyes, which had been only a sliver open, now fly wide. They are no longer dull and vacant. They are wide with a look of dawning, confused terror, and they are staring directly at you. A sound fills the room. A low, ragged, and horrifying groan. The sound of air being desperately, painfully sucked into lungs that have been still for hours. Mr. Croft lets out a strangled cry and stumbles backward, knocking over a small table with a crash. You are frozen in place, paralyzed by a bolt of pure, primal fear that is colder than any winter fog. You are staring into the eyes of a dead woman who is not dead. Her mouth opens, the ribbon you tied there falling away, and she takes another great, shuddering gasp of air. She tries to speak, but only a dry, croaking sound comes out. She lifts a hand, her fingers trembling, and touches her own face. As if to confirm she is real, the crash and her cry have brought the family running. The door bursts open. The girl's father, Sir Alistair, stands there, his face a mask of horror. which then transforms into a look of utter, disbelieving joy. "Eleanor!" he cries, rushing to her side. The room dissolves into a chaos of weeping, shouting, and hysterical. Joyful prayer. The doctor is summoned again, and he arrives, stammering apologies. Speaking of a rare condition he has only read about in medical texts, a cataleptic trance that perfectly mimics the state of death. You and your uncle. Your service is no longer required. Gather your things in a daze and retreat from the house of the miraculous resurrection. You get into your carriage. The fog is thick outside, swirling around the gaslights. Neither of you speaks for a long time. You are both in a state of profound shock. Your uncle finally breaks the silence. His voice a strained whisper. "In 30 years in this trade," he says, staring into the fog. 30 years of handling the dead. I have never seen the like. Never. He shudders. What if we had been quicker in our work? What if we had already placed her in the coffin? What if the lid had been sealed? He does not need to finish the thought. The image flashes in your own mind. An image of such absolute horror that it makes you physically ill. The image of the girl, Eleanor, waking up not on a cooling board in her own warm room, but in the cold, cramped and absolute darkness of a sealed wooden box. 6 feet beneath the damp, heavy earth, the bedrock of your profession, the one single, absolute certainty upon which your entire trade is built, that your clients are dead, has been shattered. You have looked into the face of what you believed was death, and it has looked back at you. You ride back to your shop through the silent, foggy London streets. The world outside seems unreal, a dream. The only real thing is the cold. Terrifying knowledge that now sits in your heart. The knowledge that a doctor's pronouncement is not infallible. The knowledge that a body can be still and cold and breathless, and yet still hold a spark of life. The miserable, terrifying fear of being buried alive is no longer a gothic story you might read in a penny dreadful. It is now your own, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that you will never again be able to look upon a still form in a coffin without asking yourself the terrible, unanswerable question. Are you certain the memory of Eleanor's awakening is a ghost that now haunts your own house? The quiet, professional detachment you had learned under your uncle's tutelage is gone, replaced by a constant, low-level hum of anxiety, the craft of undertaking. Once a grim but straightforward trade, is now fraught with a terrible nagging question. What if your work changes? Every house call is now a source of dread. As you stand over a still body, taking your measurements, you are no longer just a calm professional. You are a fearful detective, searching for the smallest, most subtle signs of life. You find yourself holding a polished silver button from your coat to the deceased's lips, your eyes straining in the dim light to see a trace of breath that isn't there. You press your fingers to a cold wrist long after the doctor has departed, searching for a phantom pulse. You are terrified of making a mistake, of being the one who seals the lid on a living soul. Your uncle, Mr. Croft, understands. You see him performing his own quiet, secret checks. He is a man broken of his lifelong certainty. The foundation of your shared profession, the absolute finality of death, has been fractured, and you are both now walking on cracked and unstable ground. This personal, private fear does not remain contained within your shop for long. The story of Eleanor, the Kensington debutante who returned from the grave, is too sensational to remain a secret. It leaks to the press and the penny dreadfuls. The city's cheap and lurid newspapers seize upon it with a ravenous glee. The story is exaggerated, embellished, and spread throughout London. Your own terrifying. Private trauma has become a public ghost story. a piece of thrilling entertainment for the masses, and then you begin to see it everywhere. The fear you now harbor is not just yours, it is the great, creeping anxiety of your age. You see posters on the walls of the city, advertising new, Gothic stage plays with titles like The Premature Burial or The Perils of Catalepsy. You see the stories of the American writer, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe, for sale in the bookstalls. His dark tales of being walled up alive or buried in a coffin, now finding a new and intensely receptive audience. Your fear has become fashionable. This public obsession is fueled by the very institution that should provide certainty medicine. Your uncle, now obsessed, begins to collect medical journals and pamphlets that debate the uncertain signs of death. You read them with him in the evenings. They are filled with learned, clinical discussions of catalepsy, of comas, of trances that could last for days, of conditions that could perfectly mimic death. The great doctors of London, Edinburgh, and Paris are publicly admitting that they cannot always be sure. They describe the various tests one might perform to ascertain true death. Some of them horrifying in their own right, from applying hot irons to the skin to the so-called diaphanous test. Holding the deceased's hand before a strong candle, the living flesh supposedly showing a rosy translucency that a corpse would lack. The effect of all this on the public is electric. If the doctors themselves are not sure, who can be a great? Citywide panic begins to simmer, a collective anxiety that future historians will call taphophobia, the fear of the grave. Suddenly, everyone in London is an expert on the symptoms of catalepsy. Forgetting your keys is no longer just forgetfulness. It's the first sign of a death-like trance. This new public terror soon finds its way back to your own shop door. The nature of your client's requests begins to change. Grieving families now come to you with new, fearful demands. We wish to wait 3 days before the coffin is sealed, Mr. Croft. A wealthy merchant's widow will insist. Just to be certain, we will sit with him. Another family will ask you to place a small silver bell in the hand of their deceased father before the lid is closed. It is a useless, pathetic gesture, but it is a comfort to them. You see the beginnings of a new industry, a new set of rituals born not of grief, but of this specific modern terror. Modern. The fear invades the legal world as well. You are sometimes called upon to witness the signing of a last will and testament. Now, you begin to see new, strange clauses being added. An elderly nobleman specifies in his will that, upon his death, a physician must be paid to sever his carotid artery before he is placed in the coffin. Another demands that a loaded pistol and a simple mechanism for firing it, be placed inside the coffin with him. People now come in to arrange their own funerals with a list of demands. I'd like the oak coffin, but please make sure you stab my heart with a needle before you close the lid. Just to be safe. Your job is getting very strange. You are witnessing a societal debate. Future historians, looking back, will argue about the cause of this great fear. Was it a rational response to the real limitations of medical science? Was it a symptom of a deeper, spiritual anxiety, a loss of faith in the Christian promise of a peaceful afterlife? Or was it simply a morbid fad, a thrill fueled by a sensationalist press as you stand in your shop? Listening to a grieving son ask if you can install a small breathing tube in his mother's coffin lid. You realize the answer is all of the three. The fear is rational, it is spiritual, and it is, most certainly, being fanned into a profitable flame by the newspapers. The culmination of this new age of fear arrives at your shop one foggy afternoon. A carriage, far finer than any you have seen before, pulls up outside. A man steps out. He is a great industrialist, a builder of railways and factories, one of the richest and most powerful men in England. He is not here to arrange a funeral for a loved one. He is here to arrange his own. He is a man in perfect health, but his eyes hold the deep, haunted look of a man consumed by a single, all-encompassing fear. He has read the stories. He has seen the medical journals, and he has a fortune to spend on ensuring his own end is not a premature one. Mr. Croft, he says, his voice a low, intense rumble. I have come to you because I hear you are a man who understands this predicament. I do not wish to purchase a coffin. I wish to commission one. A new kind of coffin. A modern coffin. For a modern fear. He leans forward, his eyes burning with a desperate intensity. I have heard of new inventions. Devices being patented here and on the continent. Coffins with alarm systems. Vaults with escape hatches. I want you to build me a safety coffin. I want a final resting place from which, should the doctors be mistaken, I can signal for help. Or, if need be, let myself out. You and your uncle stand there. Stunned. The request is bizarre, macabre, and unprecedented. But it is also a business opportunity. A new and potentially lucrative market born from this great, miserable fear. Your uncle, ever the pragmatist, looks at the wealthy industrialist and gives a slow, thoughtful nod. I believe, he says, that we can be of service, the industrialist's request, born of the great public terror that your own private horror helped to ignite, has just opened the door to a new and deeply strange chapter of your profession. The age of the safety coffin has begun. Your new client, the wealthy industrialist, is a man named Sir Reginald. He is a man of action, a builder of railways and factories, and he approaches his own death with the same meticulous, if morbid, engineering mindset. He is not content with your uncle's assurances. He wants a system. He wants proof of concept. I have been reading, Sir Reginald says during his next visit to your shop. His eyes alight with a focused, obsessive energy. The Germans, a most practical people, have already addressed this problem on a municipal scale. I am funding a research trip for you. Young man, you will travel to Munich. I am told they have the finest and most modern lichen house awaiting mortuary in all of Europe. I want you to see it, study its systems, learn its mechanisms, and bring that knowledge back to me. And so, your strange apprenticeship takes another unexpected turn. You are no longer just an undertaker, you are now an industrial researcher, a spy sent to learn the secrets of the continental death trade. You travel to Munich, a city of clean, orderly streets and a sober, serious populace, and you present your letter of introduction from Sir Reginald to the director of the city's famous waiting mortuary. The director, a proud, efficient man named Herr Schmidt, is delighted to show off his state-of-the-art facility. You are immediately struck by how little it resembles a house of the dead. It is not a grim, dark building. It is more like a sanatorium or a botanical conservatory. A long, bright hall with a high glass ceiling and large windows, filled with potted plants and flowers. Along the walls are a series of numbered biers, or beds, each covered with a clean white sheet. The air is warm, and it smells not of decay, but of flowers and carbolic soap. Here, Herr Schmidt says with a sweep of his hand, the dead may rest in comfort and dignity while we, the living, may rest with the absolute certainty of their condition. It is the perfect fusion of science and sentiment. He explains the process. When a person is pronounced dead, their body is brought here instead of being immediately placed in a coffin. They are laid upon one of the numbered biers for a period of 2 to 3 days, a watchful waiting period. Before burial is permitted, the Germans have invented a special building where they take dead people to wait for a few days. Just in case they're not really dead. It's like a hotel for the recently deceased. With a very, very late checkout, he then leads you to the heart of his ingenious system. The watchman's office. It is a small room with a large window looking out onto the main hall, and on one wall is a great wooden board, upon which are mounted 24 small brass bells, each one with a number corresponding to a bier in the hall. From the clapper of each bell, a long, thin cord runs up to the ceiling, through a system of pulleys, and down to the corresponding body in the hall. Herr Schmidt shows you how it works. He takes you to an empty beer and shows you the soft leather loop at the end of the cord. This, he says, is placed around the finger or the toe of the deceased. The slightest movement, the smallest twitch of a muscle, will cause the cord to pull, and the bell in the watchman's office will ring. It is a simple, brilliant, and deeply macabre system. You are shown the watchman himself, a quiet man who sits in the office. His only job, 24 hours a day, to sit in silence and listen for a dead person to ring for service. It's a noble profession, but probably not one with a lot of exciting days at the office. The director proudly points out the other precautions. A fine thread is sometimes placed over the lips, so that the faintest breath will disturb it. A mirror is held to the mouth. We have even experimented with a system of speaking tubes, he says. Though they are difficult to keep clean, you, with your newfound professional anxiety, are deeply impressed. But as a historian and a man of logic, you have a crucial question. You ask Herr Schmidt. In the 10 years this fine facility has been in operation, how many times has a bell been rung by a person who was not, in fact, truly dead? Truly. The director's proud demeanor falters for just a moment. He clears his throat. The system has had a few technical challenges, he admits. In the beginning, we had several false alarms. We discovered that as the body settles after death, the natural process of decomposition can create gases that cause the limbs to twitch. So, no one has ever woken up. You press, we have installed a secondary system, he continues. Ignoring your question, a mechanism that accounts for the normal post-mortem movements. It requires a much stronger pull to ring the bell now. We have eliminated the false alarms. He gives you a thin, professional smile. But the true purpose of this facility is not just to save the 1 in a million who might be mistakenly pronounced dead. It is to provide peace of mind to the thousands who are not. It is a service for the living as much as it is for the dead. You understand, then? This magnificent, scientific, and expensive institution is a form of theater. It is a great, elaborate ritual designed to soothe the collective. Societal fear. Its primary function is to bury the anxiety of the living. You return to London, your mind filled with strange new ideas of bells, wires, and pulleys. You report your findings to your uncle and to your client, Sir Reginald. The industrialist is fascinated. A municipal waiting mortuary is too grand a project, but he is captivated by the principle of it, by the simple mechanical elegance of the alarm system. That, he declares, is what I want. A private waiting mortuary for one. My own coffin will be my lichen house. I want an alarm, a bell above the ground, connected to a cord inside my coffin, so that if the worst should happen, I can ring for assistance. Your uncle, Mr. Croft. Seeing the immense profit potential in this new and bizarre field of post-mortem security, agrees at once. He turns to you, his mind already calculating the cost of materials. Lad, he says, it seems you must add inventor to your list of skills. Go to your drafting table. We have a safety coffin to design. The time for research is over. The time for engineering has begun. You are no longer just an undertaker. You are about to become a pioneer in the strange and miserable science of posthumous escape artistry. The commission from Sir Reginald transforms your small, respectable undertaking business into something else entirely. You are no longer just craftsmen. You are now inventors. Pioneers on the cutting edge of a strange and morbid new field of engineering. Your workshop, once smelling only of sawdust and varnish, now also carries the scent of hot metal, machine oil, and burning intellectual energy. You and your uncle, Mr. Croft. Spend a week at the drafting table. grappling with the bizarre practicalities of Sir Reginald's request. It is a unique engineering problem. How does one create a reliable signaling system that can pass through 6 feet of earth and a sealed oak lid, yet be triggered by the faintest movement of a person likely in a state of extreme weakness and confusion? Your uncle focuses on the coffin itself. It must be a fortress against the earth, but not a prison for the soul. He designs a model with a reinforced lid, but also with thicker glass plates set into it, to allow any rescuing party to peer inside and verify the occupant's state before opening it. Your task is the mechanism. You spend hours sketching and discarding ideas. A simple rope is too prone to snagging or rotting in the damp earth. A series of levers is too complex and might be disturbed by the undertakers themselves as they lower the coffin. Finally, you land on a solution inspired by the newfangled servant summoning bells being installed in grand houses. Your design is one of elegant, if grim, simplicity. A thin, silver-plated tube, like a speaking tube, will be set into the coffin lid at one end. This tube will be watertight, sealed with a rubber gasket. Through this tube, a fine but strong brass wire will run inside the coffin. This wire will be attached to a small ring, to be placed on the deceased's finger, on the surface, above the grave. The tube will emerge into a protective iron housing, where the wire will be connected to the clapper of a small, loud, spring-loaded brass bell. It is a system of direct, mechanical action. A single, determined pull on the ring below will, theoretically, produce a clear, unmistakable ringing above. You create a series of detailed, technical drawings. You build a small-scale working model, and you present your design to Sir Reginald. He is immensely impressed. Ingenious, my boy. He booms, his eyes shining with the delight of a fellow industrialist who appreciates a well-solved mechanical problem. It is practical. It is reliable. It is the application of modern engineering to our most ancient fear. Build it. He pays for the development and the patenting of the design. And so the Croft and Nephew patent safety coffin is born. Word of your special commission for the great Sir Reginald travels quickly through the small, gossipy, and intensely anxious circles of wealthy. Upper-class London. The fear of premature burial, you discover, is a luxury good. The poor may fear it, but the rich have the means to obsess over it and, more importantly, to do something about it. A new kind of client begins to appear at your shop. They are not the black-clad, weeping relatives you are used to. They are prosperous, healthy, and often eccentric individuals who have come to plan for their own demise with a terrifying level of detail. Your showroom, once a somber place of quiet grief, now includes a corner dedicated to your new specialty. You have cross-sectional drawings of the coffin on display. You have your working model, which you demonstrate to prospective clients, showing how a pull on the small ring produces a cheerful, if chilling, jingle from the bell. You have found a new business model selling high-end, luxury security systems for people who are already dead. The target demographic is small, but they are highly motivated. An elderly woman, a wealthy widow, becomes your first new customer. You must now become a salesman. You walk her through the features of your design with a calm, professional air that belies the utter strangeness of the conversation. The coffin itself, madam, you explain, pointing to a diagram, is of the finest Spanish mahogany. The lining is of padded silk. For comfort, and here, you point to a new feature you have added, is a small, protected breathing tube, which extends to the surface, capped with a special grate to prevent the entry of rainwater or insects, but which will provide a steady supply of fresh air for a considerable time. And the alarm, she asks, her voice a thin, reedy whisper. The alarm mechanism is our own patented design. You say with a hint of pride. The wire is of brass which will not rust. The tube is of silver plate. and the bell is housed in a sturdy, weatherproof iron casing that can be fashioned to look like a small grave ornament. It seems very thorough, she says, a look of immense relief on her face. She places a massive order for two, one for herself and one for her husband, who is already interred in their family mausoleum and whom she now wishes to have exhumed and reburied with this new, higher level of security. You realize you are no longer just an undertaker. You are a merchant, and your product is not a box, but peace of mind. You are selling a technological solution to a deep, primal, and perhaps irrational fear, and business is good. The debate that future historians will have about your industry feels very real to you. Are you a cynical charlatan, exploiting a public panic for profit, or are you a sincere craftsman, providing a genuine service to soothe the anxieties of your clients? You look at your uncle, Mr. Croft, his face a mask of solemn professionalism as he calculates the immense cost of the widow's order. And you know the answer is both. He truly believes he is doing good by easing his client's fears, but he is not at all upset that this good deed is also immensely profitable. Your workshop is now a busy, strange place. You have hired a new apprentice to handle the normal coffin making, while you now spend most of your time on the fine mechanical work of the safety systems, the first great Croft patent safety coffin. The one for Sir Reginald himself is nearing completion. It is a masterpiece, a beautiful and terrifying object, a perfect fusion of the cabinet maker's art and the engineer's science. You stand in the workshop one evening, looking at the finished coffin. The mahogany gleams, the brass fittings shine. The small ring attached to its wire rests on the silk lining, a silent promise of hope from beyond the grave. You have become the foremost expert in your city on this grim and singular subject. You have taken a public terror and transformed it into a respectable, profitable, and patented craft. Sir Reginald's commission now moves from the theoretical to the practical. He summons you and your uncle to his newly completed country estate, a grand neo-Gothic monstrosity of a mansion. But it is not the house he wishes you to see. He leads you past the formal gardens to a small, private hill overlooking a lake, and upon this hill stands his new tomb. It is not a simple grave or a vault in a crowded churchyard. It is a private mausoleum, a small, perfect, and deeply ostentatious temple of death, built of gray granite and marble. It has a heavy bronze door and no windows. It is a fortress, designed to hold a single occupant for all eternity. Your client, Sir Reginald, is supervising the installation of his own coffin. He keeps offering suggestions on the placement and the angle. It's very helpful to get direct feedback from the end user. Even if the end in this case is quite literal, this, he announces with immense satisfaction, is where your invention will be installed. Let us begin. The magnificent mahogany safety coffin you have built is brought from your wagon with the reverence due to a king's throne. It is carried into the cool, silent interior of the mausoleum. The inside is a single, vaulted chamber. In the center is a great, black marble sarcophagus, currently empty, upon which the coffin will one day rest. Your task for the next 2 days is the installation of the Croft and Nephew patent safety coffin's alarm system. It is a strange and complex job, a mixture of funereal reverence, delicate engineering, and heavy stonemasonry. The first and most difficult task is to run the alarm tube through the roof of the mausoleum. You must drill a single, clean hole through more than a foot of solid granite. It is slow, loud, and dusty work. Once the hole is made, you and your uncle carefully run the silver-plated tube through it, sealing it on both the inside and the outside with lead flashing and hot bitumen to ensure it is completely watertight on the roof of the mausoleum. You bolt the protective iron housing for the bell into place. Inside this housing, you install the spring-loaded brass bell mechanism. Then comes the most delicate part. You carefully thread the long, thin, but surprisingly strong Brass wire from the bell mechanism down through the tube, until its end dangles in the center of the mausoleum. Directly over the waiting sarcophagus. Finally, the coffin itself is placed inside the sarcophagus. The wire is fed through the special sealed opening in the coffin lid, and the small brass ring is attached to its end. Resting on the silk pillow where Sir Reginald's hand will one day lie, the installation is complete. But Sir Reginald is a man of industry. He believes in rigorous quality control. He insists on a full and practical test of the system. It is one thing to see a model on a desk. Mr. Croft, he says, it is another to know it works in situ. The bell must be audible from the groundskeeper's cottage. The pull must be manageable for a man in a state of distress. One of you must get inside. Your uncle looks at you. You are the younger man, the more agile one, and the inventor of the mechanism. The duty falls to you. A cold dread washes over you. But you cannot refuse. You take off your coat and shoes, and with a deep sense of unreality, you climb into the magnificent, silk-lined coffin. You have to get inside a coffin to test the alarm bell. Your uncle closes the lid. It's dark and surprisingly comfortable, but you wouldn't recommend it for a long-term stay. You give the product a mixed review. You lie down. The silk is cool against your skin. The air smells of polished mahogany and something else. A faint, clean smell of formaldehyde from the lining. Mr. Croft and Sir Reginald look down at you. Ready? Your uncle asks, his face grim. You nod. The heavy lid is lowered over you. It is not latched, but the world is suddenly plunged into an absolute, suffocating darkness. The sound of the outside world is instantly muffled. Distant. You are in the box. A wave of pure, primal claustrophobia washes over you. You fight it down. This is just an experiment. You hear Sir Reginald's muffled voice from outside. All right, my boy. Whenever you're ready, give the ring a good, solid pull. You fumble in the darkness for the small brass ring. Your fingers close around it. You take a breath of the close. Still air, and you pull. You hear the faint zip of the wire moving through the tube above you. And then you hear it. A faint, distant, but clear and unmistakable jingle, jangle, jingle of the brass bell, ringing frantically on the roof above. A moment later, the lid is lifted away, and the light floods in, blinding you. Sir Reginald is beaming, his face a picture of pure delight. It works, he roars. Magnificent, I heard it clear as day. You climb out of the coffin. Your legs unsteady, your heart pounding. The test was a success, but the experience of lying in that dark, sealed box, even for a moment, has left a cold mark on your soul. When the work is complete, and you are preparing to leave, Sir Reginald makes one final, strange request. He presses a heavy, ornate iron key into your hand. This is a key to the mausoleum, he explains. I have made a new provision in my will, upon my death. A watchman is to be hired to sit within earshot of this tomb for the first 7 days and nights. And you, as the system's designer, are to hold this key, should the bell ever ring. The watchman is instructed to summon you, and only you, immediately, day or night. You are the only one I trust to manage the situation. You are now the official key holder for a rich man's haunted tomb alarm system. You're not sure if this is a promotion, but it's definitely going to lead to some sleepless nights. You leave the grand country estate, the key heavy in your pocket. The first Croft and Nephew patent safety coffin is installed, silent and empty. A magnificent and terrifying machine, waiting for its occupant. You have proven that your invention works. But as you ride back toward the foggy, crowded streets of London, you cannot shake the feeling of the darkness inside that box, or the sound of that small, lonely, desperate bell, the successful installation of Sir Reginald's safety coffin, and the story of its testing. becomes a quiet legend among a certain nervous segment of London society. Your uncle's shop, once known only for its respectable and somber funerals, now begins to attract a new and peculiar clientele. They are the city's wealthy tapophobes, the men and women who have read the frightening medical journals and the gothic tales of Mr. Poe, and who now see their own inevitable end not as a peaceful rest, but as a potential prelude to an underground horror. Your workshop transforms. It becomes a strange laboratory for the engineering of post-mortem security. The simple arts of woodworking and joinery are now combined with the more complex mechanics of tubes, wires, springs, and levers. You are no longer just an undertaker, you are an inventor, a specialist in a field you never knew existed. The requests from your new clients are varied and often bizarre. They are not satisfied with the simple bell alarm you designed for Sir Reginald. Their fears are more specific, and they demand more elaborate solutions. A portly gentleman, whose greatest fear is not being unable to signal, but of suffocating in the dark, commissions a coffin with a dedicated ventilation system. You spend weeks designing it. You create a telescoping air pipe, a tube within a tube that can be extended to the surface from any reasonable grave depth. You must design a special cap for it, a small ornamental grate that will allow air to enter, but will prevent rainwater and, as the client fearfully insists, insects and spiders from getting in. You are becoming the world's leading expert in a field of engineering you sincerely wish did not exist. Another client, a retired army colonel with a deep-seated claustrophobia, is obsessed with the idea of escape. He does not want to signal for help. He wants to let himself out. For him. You must design a coffin with a lid that is not nailed shut, but is instead secured with a complex, spring-loaded latching mechanism that can be operated from the inside by turning a small wheel. This, in turn, requires a whole new type of burial. The coffin cannot be buried under 6 feet of earth. It must be interred in a specially constructed, shallow brick vault with a second, accessible exit to the surface. The logistics and the cost become immense. The requests grow stranger. One client, a man who read about the waiting mortuaries in Germany, asks if you can install a speaking tube so he might call out for help. Another, a true eccentric, presents you with a design for a coffin with a built-in ladder and a hinged lid. I wish to be buried vertically, he explains, so that I need only open the lid and climb out. You and your uncle have to spend a long afternoon politely explaining the immense structural challenges of digging a perfectly vertical, 9-foot deep hole that will not collapse, and the social awkwardness of him emerging in his shroud in the middle of a public cemetery. You gently guide him towards your more practical bell and air pipe model. You are living in the middle of a great historical debate, though you do not know it. Future historians will study the hundreds of patents for safety coffins filed in your century and see them as a reflection of the age's anxieties. They will debate whether these inventions were sincere attempts to solve a problem, or merely a kind of performative technology, where the complexity of the design was itself a comfort to the buyer. You see this firsthand? You know that the chance of the Colonel's internal escape latch ever being used is practically zero, but the knowledge that it is there, the very complexity and ingenuity of the mechanism, brings him a profound peace of mind. You are not selling a product. You are selling a meticulously engineered sense of control over the one thing man cannot control. One of your most memorable clients is a retired scholar, a man who has spent his life studying ancient texts. He arrives at your shop with a roll of his own drawings. He, like you, has researched the matter extensively, and his fears are highly specific. He wants a coffin that incorporates elements from multiple designs he has read about. He insists on a bell, an air pipe, and an internal escape latch, but he also demands a small, sealed compartment inside the coffin, accessible from within, which is to contain a flask of water and a vial of poison. If I should awaken, he explains calmly, and find that my rescuers are not swift enough. I require a more traditional means of ensuring my own final exit. You spend weeks working with this man. A strange collaboration between the Undertaker and the tapophobe. Your sales pitch to a new client now involves explaining the benefits of the breathing tube and the emergency signal flag. Alongside a discussion of fast-acting poisons, it feels less like you're selling a coffin and more like you're selling a very small, very permanent, and very morbid submarine. The workshop is now constantly busy with these strange and macabre constructions. You have become a master of this bizarre craft. You know the best brass for a non-rusting wire, the most reliable spring for an internal latch, the most effective grate for an air pipe. You're providing a unique and expensive service to the city's most fearful citizens. And your uncle's business has never been more profitable. But with each new coffin you design, with each new absurd precaution you are asked to build, you feel a growing sense of detachment from your original trade. You entered this profession to provide a simple, dignified service for the grieving. But you now spend your days catering to the elaborate fantasies of the living, building machines for nightmares that will almost certainly never come true. The solemn reality of death has been replaced by the complex, mechanical, and slightly mad business of fearing it. One morning, a letter arrives, sealed with the familiar crest of your first great client. It is from the solicitor of Sir Reginald. The old industrialist, after years of robust health, has been struck down by a sudden affliction of the heart. The doctors have given him only a few weeks to live. The letter formally requests that you and your uncle come to his estate to make the final preparations for his interment in the safety coffin you built for him so long ago. A chill runs down your spine. The theoretical is about to become real. The empty, waiting mausoleum is about to receive its occupant, and the strange, personal responsibility that Sir Reginald gave you the key to his tomb. The duty to respond to the bell is about to be activated. Your first and greatest creation is about to be put to use. The summons from Sir Reginald's estate comes. As you knew it one day would, you and your uncle travel to the great country house to find it in a state of hushed and anxious waiting. The old industrialist is in his final days. You are brought to his bedchamber. He is frail, his breathing shallow, but his eyes are as sharp and intense as ever. He is not afraid of death. You realize he is afraid of what comes just after. He makes you his sons, and his solicitors swear a solemn oath that you will follow the elaborate instructions laid out in his will to the absolute letter. No shortcuts, Croft, he rasps, his bony finger gripping your arm. No sensible shortcuts. Every step must be followed. You are the keeper of the key. The responsibility is yours. He passes away 2 days later, leaving behind him not just a vast fortune, but the most complex and bizarre posthumous instruction manual you have ever encountered. You are present for the reading of the will, after the long, dry passages dealing with the distribution of his factories and his fortune. The solicitor arrives at the codicil regarding the funeral, and you realize you are about to embark on the most stressful and macabre funeral of your career. The first instruction is one of waiting. The will stipulates that Sir Reginald's body is not to be touched, washed, or prepared in any way for 72 hours. He is to be left in his bed, in a warm room, with mirrors placed near his mouth and a watchman present at all times to check for the faintest sign of breath. The will requires you to wait 3 full days before preparing the body, just in case he's merely sleeping. It makes for a very awkward and quiet house party with a single, very still guest of honor. Guest of, after 3 long, tense days of this vigil. The next phase begins the tests of death. Sir Reginald, a man of science and industry, has prescribed a series of empirical tests to be performed by the family physician in your presence, to provide irrefutable proof of his demise. The list is a testament to a mind consumed by a singular terror. You stand in the bedchamber, a reluctant witness. As the doctor performs the bizarre checklist, he shouts Sir Reginald's name into his ear. He applies powerful, acrid-smelling salts to his nostrils. He tickles the soles of his feet with a feather. He even performs one of the more obscure and undignified tests of the age, the tobacco smoke enema. A special bellows is used to pump tobacco smoke into the deceased's rectum, a strange procedure believed to be a powerful stimulant capable of shocking a dormant body back to life. The list of tests to prove he's dead includes shouting in his ear, tickling his feet, and the application of a tobacco smoke enema. You feel that if he is still alive. These procedures are likely to make him wish he weren't. The final test is the one you all dread. The will requires that a small incision be made to a major artery in the wrist, to prove that the blood has ceased to flow. The doctor, his own hands trembling slightly, performs the grim task. No blood flows. The proof is now considered absolute. Sir Reginald is by every measure known to science and superstition, truly and finally dead. Now, and only now. Can you begin your work as an undertaker? You prepare the body and place it in the magnificent safety coffin you built for him so long ago. But even here, there are special instructions. You must place within the coffin a small, velvet-lined case. Inside this case, as specified by the will, are a flask of fine French brandy, a small wrapped parcel of bread and cheese, a small, sharp chisel, and a sealed vial of fast-acting poison, derived from the foxglove plant. It's a thoughtful little care package for the potentially undead, covering all the options from a light snack to immediate suicide. He has planned for every contingency. Finally, the day of the interment arrives. The coffin is sealed, the alarm wire connected to the ring on Sir Reginald's finger. It is placed in the sarcophagus inside the grand private mausoleum. You, as the designated keyholder, perform the solemn task of locking the great bronze door. The final provision of the will now comes into effect. A watchman, a sturdy man from the estate, is posted in a small, specially constructed hut within sight of the mausoleum. His only duty, for the next 7 days and 7 nights, is to sit and to listen. He is provided with a horn to sound the alarm should the bell on the roof of the tomb begin to ring. You and your uncle return to London. You feel a profound sense of relief that the bizarre and stressful task is complete, but you are also now tied to that silent granite building on the lonely hill. You are the man with the key. You are the one who must be summoned. For the next week, you do not sleep well. Every time you hear a bell ring in the street, you jolt, your heart pounding. You find yourself dreading the sound of a horse's hooves in the night, fearing it is a messenger from the estate, coming to tell you that the impossible has happened. You are waiting for a dead man to call you, for 4 nights. You sleep fitfully, your ears straining at every distant sound in the London night, your mind half expecting a frantic summons. But no message comes. A fragile sense of relief begins to settle in. Sir Reginald is at peace. The mechanism remains silent. The ordeal is over. On the 5th night, you are proven wrong. The sound of a horse being ridden at a desperate, furious gallop on the cobblestones below your window shatters the midnight silence. A moment later, a frantic pounding on your shop door echoes through the house. You and your uncle throw on your robes, with a cold, sickening certainty. What this is, sickening. At the door is a young groom from Sir Reginald's estate, his face white as a sheet, his horse lathered in sweat. "Master Croft," he gasps. "You must come. It is the bell. The bell on the tomb. It has been ringing for the past hour." The words strike you like a physical blow. You and your uncle do not waste a moment. You dress quickly, grab your heavy tool bag filled now with crowbars and hammers, the tools of an emergency exhumation, and get into your fastest carriage. You are racing through the night, a desperate journey to answer the summons of a dead man. This is, by far, the strangest and most stressful delivery service you have ever been a part of. The journey is a nightmare of speed and shadow. The moon is bright, and the countryside rushes past in a blur of silver and black. with every beat of the horse's hooves. A single question pounds in your own head. What will we find? A man. Mad with the terror of his own premature burial, or a corpse? Still dead. Its movement a trick of some natural process or something else. Something worse. You arrive at the estate in the cold. Gray hours just before dawn. A small, terrified group is gathered on the hill by the mausoleum, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a few torches. Sir Reginald's eldest son is there, his face a mask of horrified disbelief. The watchman is huddled in a blanket, shaking uncontrollably, and you hear it. It is not loud, but it is clear, persistent, and utterly unnerving. A faint, tinny, and frantic jingle-jangle-jingle coming from the roof of the great stone tomb. The bell is ringing. You, as the keeper of the key, must be the one to open the door. Your hand trembles as you fit the heavy iron key into the lock. The sound of the great bronze door groaning open is deafeningly loud in the tense silence. You and your uncle step inside, your own lamp held high. The mausoleum is cold and still as the grave it is. The magnificent mahogany coffin rests silently in its marble sarcophagus, but the sound of the bell is louder in here. A frantic, insistent jingling coming from the silver tube in the coffin's lid. There is no other way, your uncle says, his voice grim. We must open it. The four of you, your uncle, and Sir Reginald's two sons put your shoulders to the immense marble lid of the sarcophagus with a great groaning effort. You heave it aside, the stone scraping on stone. Now all that is left is the coffin itself. You approach it, your heart pounding. The bell is still ringing. You reach for the heavy brass latches you so carefully designed, and one by one, you undo them. This is the moment, the culmination of years of fear, of study, of strange and morbid engineering, with a shared deep breath. You and your uncle take hold of the coffin lid and lift. You look inside. Sir Reginald lies there. He is still and pale in the lamplight. His eyes are closed. He has not moved. He is, by all appearances, profoundly and irreversibly dead. But the bell is still ringing. You look closer. The ring on his finger has been pulled tight. The brass wire leading up to the tube is taut. And then you see it. The cause. The simple, grim, and biological truth. In the days since his burial in the sealed, airtight coffin. The natural process of decomposition has begun. The gases produced by his body's decay have caused his limbs, particularly his arm, to bloat and swell. It was this slow, inexorable, and entirely natural swelling that tightened the cord, pulled the wire, and triggered the frantic ringing of the bell on the roof. You have just performed an emergency exhumation in the middle of the night, expecting to find a man risen from the dead. Instead, you find that the resurrection was just a bit of post-mortem bloating. It's a biological technicality, but one that has caused a great deal of trouble. A strange mixture of profound relief and a kind of grim. Farcical absurdity washes over you. You look at Sir Reginald's sons, at your uncle, and they are all staring at the same simple and grotesque reality. The alarm. One of the sons stammers. It worked. Yes, your uncle says. His voice a dry, weary rasp. The invention is a complete success. He looks at the still form of your client. Though I suspect the customer is not entirely satisfied, you reach into the coffin and, with a strange reverence, you snip the brass wire with a pair of cutters, the frantic jingling from the roof above finally, blessedly, falls silent. You stand there in the mausoleum as the first rays of dawn begin to filter through the open doorway. The great, terrifying mystery has been solved. There is no miracle. There is no horror from beyond the grave. There is only the simple, unavoidable, and deeply undignified reality of what happens to a human body after death. You have spent years of your life building a magnificent, ingenious machine to protect a man from a supernatural fear, only to be summoned in the dead of night by a simple, predictable, and gruesome law of nature. You have learned the final, miserable lesson of the safety coffin. The true horror is not that the dead might wake up. The true horror is that they inevitably, and sometimes very noisily, decay. The bell on Sir Reginald's tomb is silenced. The coffin is resealed. And the story of that night, the story of the false alarm, becomes the final, quiet, and most telling chapter in the history of the Crofton nephew patent. Safety coffin. You return to London, but the experience has fundamentally changed you. You have looked into the very heart of the great fear, and you have found it to be not a monster, but a mundane and biological process. In the years that follow, you continue your strange and lucrative trade. You build more safety coffins, each one a testament to your skill and a monument to your client's anxieties. But your heart is no longer in it. You see the absurdity in the complex levers and the pointless breathing tubes. You have seen the truth, and then, slowly, the great fear begins to recede. Not because of your inventions, but because of the steady, relentless advance of medical science. New diagnostic tools become more common. Doctors learn to use the stethoscope to listen for the faintest heartbeat. They learn to detect the minute electrical currents of the living body, the line between life and death. Once a foggy, uncertain territory becomes a sharper, more clearly defined border. The public's faith shifts from inventors like you to physicians and men of science. The demand for safety coffins dwindles. The great tapophobia craze of the 19th century fades, becoming a historical curiosity, a bizarre chapter of Victorian anxieties. Your business returns to the more sober and predictable work of providing simple, dignified funerals for the truly and certainly dead. For a decade, you were the most sought-after builder of escape artist coffins in London. Then doctors got better at their jobs, and suddenly no one was worried about waking up in a box anymore. The advance of medical science was terrible for our high-end security coffin business. Years pass. You are an old man now. Your uncle, Mr. Croft, has long since passed, and you are the master of the firm. One rainy afternoon, you are cleaning out the old workshop. In a dusty corner, under a canvas sheet, you find it a half-finished model of a safety coffin you were designing years ago. This one with an elaborate spring-loaded flag that was meant to pop up from the grave. You stand there in the dusty silence, looking at the absurd and ingenious little machine, and you reflect on the strange era you lived through, on the great fear you both suffered from and profited by. You realize now that the fear was never truly about being buried alive. That was just the form it took. The real fear, you understand, was the anxiety of an age caught between two worlds. The old world of religious faith, with its promises of a soul and an afterlife, was beginning to crumble under the weight of new scientific discoveries. But the new world of science was not yet strong enough to provide its own comfort. It could explain away the soul, but it could not yet conquer death. The people of your time were trapped in a terrible limbo, a space between a dying faith and an infant science. And in that space, a primal fear took root, and you were the one who sold them a remedy. You look at your old drawings, at the plans for air pumps and escape hatches. You were not building life-saving devices. You were building mechanical prayers. You were selling talismans of brass and steel. Your clients did not truly believe they would ever need to ring that bell, but the knowledge that the bell was there, the very existence of the complex, rational, mechanical system, was a comfort. It gave them a sense of control over the one thing that terrified them most. You weren't building escape hatches for the dead. You were building peace of mind for the living. You were, in the end, burying their fear. One expensive, patented coffin at a time. You keep the old iron key to Sir Reginald's mausoleum on your desk. It is a reminder of that frantic, moonlit night. The night the great fear was revealed to be nothing more than a sad and simple biological process. It is a reminder that the most terrifying phantoms are often the ones we create in our own minds. And so, your story, the story of the undertaker's apprentice who became a master of a strange and fearful trade, comes to its quiet end. You have lived through an age of great anxiety and have come out the other side into a world of new, more modern certainties. The strange, miserable fear that once gripped a nation has now faded into a quaint and gothic legend. The safety coffins, with their bells and their tubes, now rest silently in their vaults. Their alarms never to be rung. They are monuments, not to premature burial, but to the fear of it. Their mechanisms, once a source of comfort, are now just a curious footnote in the long, boring history of death. Let the memory of that fear now recede. The sound of the midnight bell is silent. The suffocating darkness of the sealed coffin has been replaced by the gentle darkness of your own quiet room. The anxieties of the past are just stories now, their power to frighten tamed by the passage of time. All that is left is a profound and peaceful quiet, a final, comfortable rest, with no need for alarms or escape hatches.